working all my life.
You're almost 40 fucking years old.
Meet Bobby Sweet. All he's ever wanted to do is write and perform country music.
As you know, I would like to become a country music star.
But one thing has always stood in his way.
You got the stage fright.
Meet Laddie.
She's pretty, she's smart, business savvy, a bit intense and kind of rude and angry a lot of the time.
No shit.
And then meet Jerry.
He's a fucking moron.
They're serving up something more than
Burgers and fries!
Burgers and fries!
burgers and fries. So come on down to Sweet Meats and get yourself a treat.
What we served, that food critic was human! We served him man meat!
Exactly. So, what you're saying is we need to find more people to grind up.
Bye.
The devil is a woman I know. The devil is a woman I know. The devil is a woman I know. For the good Lord told me so. For the good Lord told me so. For the good Lord told me so. For the good Lord told me so.
Yeah, called Daddy-O. So we're both dads who tour and do stand-up comedy. So we had done some shows together in Florida, and we were like, hey, what if we put together, so like, because no one knows our names, like even though if we have like a little bit of credits,
sure,
but like no one knows our name, what if we just named it something, like started a podcast, because we can work material that way.
Yeah, for sure.
And just like also get to chat and have fun. But then we can then use that as kind of the launching pad of being like, okay, it's this tour that's called the Daddy-O tour. Like, well, what is it? It's live stand-up comedy. Okay. Well, like, even if I don't know who they are, we'll see. It's always throwing stuff up against the wall and seeing what
sticks. No, I totally get it. I've always wanted to pursue stand-up, but I have no time or resources for it. So I'm basically using this as a way to try to be funny. And
no, it's a good way. Podcasting, video, or whatever, even just a social media. I do feel like that's like a new extension of live comedy.
I would agree. Yeah, it's definitely it's sort of like an completely improv open mic for like an hour at a time for comedians. And I see a lot of comedians be better on podcasts than in their stand-up. Honestly,
that's a whole conversation that's going on right now about like should comics release as many specials as they do? Are they more? Oh, is it the coward himself coming in right on time? I hope you heard my words.
And his last name is Hiance.
No. That was Hiance. That was interesting. The closet being open was interesting. I was like, is that guitar up in there? Is Nick practicing? Is he gonna bust something out?
Well, thank you guys for joining me. I really appreciate it, and allowing me the opportunity to review the movie and everything.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, of course. Anytime. I'll just do a quick intro here real quick. Everybody, welcome back to the Let's Ruin Our Lives podcast. I'm your host, Josh Hensley. Today, a very special episode of the pod. We will be talking about the newest movie released by Trauma Productions called Sweet Meats. And fortunate enough today to be joined by the writer and director of the film, Ricky Glore. That's how you pronounce your last name.
Yeah. When you said Rick Glore, I was like, my dad's on the podcast? He's taking credit for this?
Mr. Glore, right?
No. Mr. Glore, if you're nasty. But
yeah.
Ricky Glore.
Okay.
Writer, director, wearer of many hats in the movie. One of my favorite comments has been so far is, so our first movie, All Your Friends Are Dead, I had lost 140 pounds after making that movie. So when we had the premiere, people, like, I forgot to tell people that I was in the movie because Nick and I introduced it at the Esquire. And I was just like, yeah, everyone, writer, directors, cinematographer, Ricky Glore and Nick Hiance. And I forgot to say, also I'm in the movie. So afterwards they were like, where's the lead actor? Is he gonna come?
Right.
Is he gonna? And we're like, oh, that's me. Oh, I forgot. I look completely different. I've already had the same thing with Sweetmeats. People are just like, I had no idea that the guy at the beginning of the movie and the ridiculous curly-haired guy would be the same person,
right?
Or that you were either. I mean, I'm starting to look more like it now with the sideburns and the mustache,
chops there. Yeah, honestly, one of my notes, and I didn't want to be insulting, but I did notice that you've lost a lot of weight. Like, I saw your dry bar. I've also lost a lot of weight in my life, but I saw your dry bar comedy special, and I was like, that's the same actor that's in Sweetmeats?
I'm sorry. Can we time out? Are we here to talk about Sweetmeats, or did Ricky plug his weight loss? Because I feel like every interview he's just shoehorning this in. In case you guys didn't know, right? Just let you know that,
Yeah, no.
I also want to scratch off lottery ticket last week for $5. So,
Nick's like, I lost 2 pounds last week. I should be celebrated just as much.
No, of course. I'm sorry, Nick. I didn't introduce you. You're the director of photography, right? Cinematographer on the film, Nick Hiance. Thank you also for joining in.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
No, I'm pretty stoked to talk about this movie.
I like this Nick. I like this Nick coming in and busting balls, being like, I'm not gonna be fucking railroaded this time. Makes the interviews different. I like it.
For sure. Do you guys do a lot of podcasts together, or have you?
So the joke is, Nick is not as verbose as I am. A lot of things that are funny in the movie are from Nick, are from our shorthand and our many years of collaboration since high school.
Oh wow!
But Nick doesn't. Typically, he isn't the carnival barker that I am that does the podcast.
Sure.
So for this round of promotion, he reached out and he was just like, hey, if ever, you want to have someone join you on one of these podcasts, I think it was more out of guilt. You're like, I'll jump on. And I was just like, oh, I will take every opportunity now, because you're only the second one that has had Nick Hiance. That's why we always featured it. In our 2 crowdfunding things, we said an exclusive commentary with Nick Hiance and Ricky Glore that's only on the All Your Friends Are Dead Kickstarter, Blu-ray, or the Sweetmeats Indiegogo, because you prefer not to talk about the thing that you made because you feel like you have probably more criticisms than maybe other people.
Of course, definitely.
Sorry, I'm assuming for you to speak for yourself, Nick.
No, just please continue. 2 things. Okay, so real quick. It is 1,000% a guilt trip. Ricky was like, man, I got to do all these podcasts. So before I get there, thank you for having me. Not Ricky, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Can't wait to talk about the movie. And 2, it's more just out of laziness. That's the only reason it's exclusive that I haven't done any more podcasts. So.
Okay. Well, I mean, I appreciate you putting away the time to join this meager podcast. I'm really stoked to talk about this movie. How much did Kentucky inspire this film?
Oh, interesting.
Are you guys both from Kentucky?
Yeah.
Okay.
We definitely are.
Okay,
interesting. I'll let you. I've never even thought about that. What knee-jerk reaction do you have to that, Nick? I've not thought about culturally our location being next to a big city that always seems shinier, brighter, has sports teams. We had the University of Kentucky, which is still an hour and a half south of us, which that area is what I would say is more like Kentucky when you think of Kentucky. We're really South Cincinnati. But we also weren't Cincinnati, which was like, there was a show, WKRP in Cincinnati. It just wasn't a big city. Like, it's a big city that kind of existed in pop culture. So if that has anything to do with like the idea of like Bobby, if he like lived in New Jersey and looked across the bay to like New York City, like maybe that is that he was just like, oh, I've gone into the city and like
I was gonna
I've seen a
I was gonna say that kind of reminded me of Tromaville and all the Troma movies. You know how it's in New Jersey and then you got the view of the big city across the water there. So I thought that okay.
You know, that really does hit deep because like we were probably about a half hour away from Cincinnati. So when you're younger, it's an impossibility, right? We're never, you're not going to Cincinnati ever. Really, growing up, I probably only went like a couple times a year, maybe to like a baseball game and maybe like Christmas time or something like that. But yeah, I think it's that kind of aspirational thing where we're like, I think Ricky hit the nail on the head. Like we don't feel like Kentucky because we're like a Cincinnati suburb, but we were far enough away. Like when you're younger, where it's just like an impossibility to go there, kind of like every day. So yeah, I think it's really kind of aspirational. I think it kind of fits in with Bobby a little bit.
There was this weird gatekeeping thing that I think Nick experienced too with my family. Even though my dad is from the Cincinnati area, he's from Loveland. He had a gas station. His dad had a business that was Cincinnati centric, but when he started a family, it ended up being a move from Goshen, Ohio to Alexandria, Kentucky to get better real estate, to get better property. Sure. And so my mom was always from Dayton, Kentucky, which is kind of super close. Like where we live now, down the street, there's a condo building that was the high school that my mom went to that has been like converted into like these high-end condos. Wow, it's just wild to see that. But like there's this mentality, I think Nick has heard this too. People would be like from Kentucky, it's like, oh, we don't go into Cincinnati. Why would you go into Cincinnati? We have everything like And there was kind of like vice versa. Like people in Cincinnati is like, why would you cross the bridge and go to Kentucky? But I think some of that has changed, but I do think probably subconsciously that did play into, I mean, we do touch on KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken, and the Colonel being like an inspiration of like a small business getting big. But I don't think we've actually ever had that conversation of being like, how do these characters in this small town represent us and maybe some of the same customers we grew up seeing over the years or the businesses that we would visit?
So I had a quick. All the actors are amazing in this film. I wanted to give a special props to Eileen Ernest. Her as a villain in this was amazing. Her mannerisms, just her overall demeanor and the hatred that she has inside of herself. Where did that hatred come from?
Sweet meats! I'm gonna kill that kid someday.
I mean, obviously she's sick of being like, pushed away by her father who loves Jerry, the Jerry character. And obviously she, I don't want to give too much away, but So
I think the hatred probably came from because in our first film, she was one of our actresses and we killed her off first. Oh. And so we knew we had to bring her back and let her live.
Nick's saying he's like we screwed up. Like she was so much fun as a person off screen and on screen, incredibly talented, like ridiculously talented. And we're like, what we should do? We should Drew Barrymore this or Janet Leigh this. We should kill off the best person in the movie first and not get to have their enjoyment. So part of that though was. The way we were able to make this so quickly, because we pivoted from another project to Sweet Meats, was I had a storefront musical theater show. It's weird that I'm wearing the Fleetwood Mac shirt, called Fleetwood Macbeth, which involved the Lady Macbeth character. So it was Macbeth set in the 70s radio station set to the music of Fleetwood Mac.
Oh, cool.
And Lady Macbeth character, her brother is Banquo that I had in that. And then Mac is this like lackey in the radio station, and that she is like, sees Promise as like, I can control him, and does that, and then they take over as the number one, like the new young bloods of the radio, like rock radio in the 70s.
Yeah.
So part of that, I was just like, well, you know what? I think I can change that, keep kind of the same relationships, which it's about a woman, whether if it's in the royalty, and she's just like, well, it sucks. I can never be king. I can be conditionally a queen because I married someone, but that has zero power. I'm just +1 to this person.
Right.
So somebody mentioned in a review, they were just like, man, Sweetmeats, like, you're not prepared for how funny it is. You're not prepared for how good the soundtrack is. And you're not prepared for how poignant it is dealing with women's issues of today.
For sure.
And I was just like, sure, we made this 2 years ago. Unfortunately, those same issues are just as prevalent like every year.
So, I'm sorry, go ahead. I was just going to say,
no, that's...
Would you then consider Sweetmeats to be like a pro-feminist film, in a sense? Sort of like, maybe along the lines of like Kill Bill or Even I Spit on Your Grave? I mean, those are kind of extreme examples, but...
but I know what you're saying is like, so do you justify her revenge as being a movement for all womankind? The only pushback I would give to that is she is very selfish. It's not like she then leads the charge. It's not like all the victims are men.
Right.
Like it's men and women. So I don't know how like supportive of the cause she is.
For sure.
She just finds other lives disposable.
Sure, yeah. And the way that she manipulates Bobby and uses his hopelessness to essentially, usurp her own father, and that just really kind of hit home, being somebody who's dated really evil women in my life. And
angry a lot of the times and kind of is all around terrifying to be near.
What your podcast should be about, by the way, if you've dated women on the level of Laddie, each episode should be like a high fidelity. Like here's an episode on each like awful relationship.
We actually just did a Valentine's.
Maybe you haven't reached the Laddie level yet, or you might not be here if you were,
Well, the mother of my child came pretty close. She was more of a hippie type though, but I wash my hands of that. So, one of the phrases that I loved in the movie was,
but he's 2 ham sandwiches shy of a picnic.
Is that like a phrase from the South? Because my family is from the South, so I know there's all these like colloquialisms and turns of phrases or whatever. Is that something you wrote originally, or does it come from like the South?
Unfortunately, it's not a saying. I think it's one of those like John Hughes things, like where he was writing for teenagers, and he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna write like linguistic things that I think teenagers might be saying nowadays."
Sure.
There's no way I can go and sit in a high school and hear like what is their actual lingo that they do. So I think that was one of those that I was just like, I like the idea of 2 ham sandwiches shy of a picnic. Like, there's something poetic sounding like that way.
Definitely.
The way it flows off the top. Nick's just like, fuck you.
Well, it was very realistic and came off very organically. It wasn't like, oh, that's something that, like, he pulled out of nowhere.
I mean, that's also Andrew Gordon played their dad. Nick was pretty dialed in, being, I think, a guy from Ohio. Everybody, including Eileen and Timmy Barron, who played Jerry, everybody was pretty secure in who their characters were.
Was the entire thing shot in that restaurant? Like, is the basement connected to the restaurant and then the alley outside? Because that's what the movie basically is, right? It's like these 3 different stages or whatever. Is that all one place? Oh, can you guys not?
Yeah, so I'm not sure. So we're on different squares, so I think it's a little different when you point. Yeah.
No, whoever.
No, the restaurant was, we used Buffalo there. Really, we got really lucky with the restaurant location. So the front half is like the diner type with the tables and chairs, and then right behind that, the kitchen. But really, kind of what saved us, and then behind that is the alleyway that you're thinking of, where we shot some of the stuff with the doors to say 13. We just got lucky that they were 12 and 13. So
Yeah, for sure.
I was just dumb luck again. But one of the things that really helped our production is we were set up there for basically a week, and next door to the restaurant is like their catering like event center hall.
Oh, okay.
So it's a big giant open space, like a dozen tables and a whole bunch of room. So we were able to set up there. So like Eileen and a few of the other, the A-list or actors and actresses we had their own table with all of their stuff. And then we had the makeup crew. And then I think I actually had to set up all my stuff on the floor, but because I didn't make, one of the tables were pretty exclusive. There's only a dozen, so the DP didn't get any table.
The cast
so
comes
just
first, I
my
guess.
stuff on the floor, but
Sure, yeah.
no, it
I
was
think
so
Trace,
nice.
I think Trace, the assistant director, I think he had 2 tables. And I think he said, I don't need to, but fuck Nick Hiance. And I said, yeah, fuck Nick Hiance. And you're like, what are you guys saying? And we said nothing. Don't worry about it.
You know what I thought was
Your camera equipment.
You know what I thought was interesting about the restaurant itself was the curtains or the blinds. Like I don't think I've ever seen blinds like that in a fast food restaurant, or at least not from the Southwest like I'm from or whatever. I'm from Los Angeles and Arizona. So I don't know. The curtains really stuck out to me for some reason.
It's a Greek diner in Harrison, Ohio that is called Nick's Restaurant. So that is why the lead character's name is Nick.
Nice.
100% is that. Grook is the last name of Lady Macbeth in Shakespeare's Macbeth, so that's why that's in there.
Oh, okay.
But the diner, as Nick said before, we didn't set decorate anything. Like we would remove some things or try to cover up for anachronisms, or like if a calendar said like 2024 or 2023 Bengals or whatever, we'd be like, all right, let's take that down or let's turn this or whatever. We'd do that much, but at diner, like in those blinds, what's crazy to me is, and we've talked about this with All Your Friends Are Dead, is we must have an eye in some way. I don't think you can get lucky as we have with how like things kind of work out and like come together. The one thing about this movie is it progresses. We go back to that front room of that diner, but Nick shot it every way possible.
Yeah.
None of the shots look the same inside of the main dining room, leading up to the end when after big thing happens and Laddie's just like, hey, the franchise people are going to come and we're going to talk about that. Are you ready? Mm-hmm. And he's like, yeah, I'm ready. And she's like, well, why? And he's like, because I'm Bobby fucking Sweets. That we shot that on the last day of filming in the diner, and it was at like the golden hour of 5:30. Nice. We had never shot at that time any other scene, so like it worked perfectly.
Oh yes, okay,
like,
yeah.
That light, like that golden light, just coming in, backlighting me, because we also didn't have lighting because.
That's incorrect. That was all planned by the DP. That shot, we waited for the sun to be perfectly right there, and then we dialed it all in. Yeah, it wasn't a happy accident at all. So just that minor correction. So
that's brilliant.
But that what I'm saying is also like, what did you work with, Nick? Everybody, I'm sorry, when I say everybody, that's a hyperbole. Like a lot of people have asked me, what did you shoot on? And like, what was the tripod or the track that you guys use? Because no one knows that the first 2 days we didn't have what you ended up using for the rest of the shoot. But I think it's a good promo to how we shot this, how we wanted it to look, and what you ended up using.
Yeah, so we shot on a Fuji mirrorless camera, specifically for anybody who might be paying attention. The XH2S, we shot it in 6K, we shot it in RAW, we were going into a monitor. At the time, it was to give us the most flexibility to kind of maybe have a little more leniency in post, knowing that we're shooting this feature in a week. So we didn't have time for lighting. We didn't have time for a whole bunch of takes of very elaborate shots, just because most of those days were half days too. They weren't full days. Wow. And so the first 2 days, we had a camera rig with the with the monitor, with hard drives and things like that, and it was probably close to 20 some odd pounds, and I'm making that up. It felt heavier than the weight would probably indicate. And we were just doing this handheld. So Chris Morris, one of the producers and camera assistant, really cameraman on the project, we were trading back and forth because it was just so heavy. And after about 48 hours of shooting, we had to go get a monopod. It really saved us. One with it has some feet at the bottom, so you could almost use it as a tripod. So we were able to steady the whole camera rig on that and then pick it up and move it around rather easily. But then you could set it down for static shots and then be able to pick it up and move with the characters and kind of go with the flow a little bit. And I think it really did save us. And in the long term, I think it really did help the look and kind of feel of the film to be able to travel with our characters. Because I feel like if we would have tried to just handheld that thing all week long, by the last day we would have been, all the shots would have been us going up and down. It's our irons are aching for a week.
Stabilization with cameras right now, it is crazy compared to what it was even when we were first working in Sony Vegas and shit. But still, after 2 days of doing that, after the shooting for the day, you and I were talking, and you were just like, I need a monopod. If we want to achieve this look that we're going for, I need a monopod. And I can't remember the store, but it's near the Beachmont Avenue area. I went in and we're like, look, we're shooting this low to no budget movie. Can you do anything for us? Because we're trying not to spend an arm and a leg for this thing that we need. For the vibe and the look of the film. And again, big kudos to Eileen and Timmy for being able, and Andrew, for being able to do long takes of Eileen especially, of a lot of dialogue. Because we were like, all right, our look is going to be this. It's going to feel a little documentary, almost like The Office or sitcoms or Christopher Guest movies. We're leaning into that this is the Lifetime movie version. If it was a documentary, and they the cameras were in there,
right?
It's a reenactment.
Okay. Yeah.
So the
I did like that kind of aspect of the no budget filmmaking, basically, where we ended up with this thing, because it's I think the monopod is $200 to $300, something like that. It's not a very high end monopod. It was great for our needs, but it was still one of those things where I had to then, as the director of photography, go to Ricky Glore, the producer, not the star director writer, and be like, hey, we need $300 of the no budget to go get this piece of equipment if we're going to continue on. That we didn't think we needed when we started filming, or we started writing out the budget. And so it's just kind of fun to work through those little things and then get a tool ultimately that's not cheap, but really transformed how we were able to do things and keep us moving at a pretty quick pace.
Okay.
And that's a bit difference between indie, no budget. Indie films, I think it's technically anything under 20 million, but what we're doing we had
so we weren't quite indie then. We were 20 million and one was our goal.
That's what I'm saying. It's I don't know what the demarcation of is there no budget? Is it low budget? What is, I don't know what the classification is. But for us, we had an Indiegogo that was running while we were filming. So we were putting out content and showing things and pictures and stuff, being hey, please keep on giving us money because.
Yeah. So I'm not very familiar with what Indiegogo is. Could you briefly describe that?
It's a Kickstarter crowdfunding site. So it's a GoFundMe, but it's usually for a product. And so
you can share content while the ad runs or whatever.
Yeah, and you can gain so people will then.
Well, I think this is perfect because you've heard of Kickstarter, right?
Yeah.
I assume. So Kickstarter is all or nothing. Indiegogo is like whatever you donate it, we get. So even if the project doesn't go through and we end up getting donations of, let's just say $10,000, we get all that money.
Oh wow!
And then we were trying to raise 20, so now we just have $10,000 of your money that we're not obligated to give back to you. So that was actually a big talk before, because we're like, Kickstarter's definitely got the cachet, people are aware of it. But we were nervous because we were coming off a failed project. Where we were like, what if we don't reach the Kickstarter for a second time? Then we're not going to be able to do this. So we did pivot to Indiegogo, just knowing that, well, we can make this with a micro to no budget. We just need some people to donate. So we were able to surpass our goal. But it was really a conversation
that's amazing.
we've had multiple times, or just like
I think that's
nervous to go with it.
Okay.
So Lloyd had come on board to film the cameo, to film the Lloyd Duckwood on the TV.
Lloyd Kaufman, of course, of Trauma.
Yeah.
So come on down to Main Street and get your suck on.
So before Trauma became involved in the movie, or we signed any contract with him distributing or buying the movie, he agreed to be in the movie. And so then after that, I was like, hey, since you're going to be in the movie, can you film a video of you saying, hey, people, like, go and donate. Like, I'm in the movie. And he did. And then he was like, hey, can we talk? Have you guys thought about who's going to distribute the movie? Nice. And then I was like, oh, okay. So like, as this happened, because we have an Indiegogo that is going on 2 weeks before the movie starts filming, Trauma comes on board, and then we can announce on our crowdfunding that, like, okay, Trauma's on board. And so then we keep on getting people who are interested in this thing.
Yeah, of course.
We didn't feel the weight of that too much, because we still made the thing. The best thing about Trauma so far has been that, like, they've really trusted what we want to do, and they're just like, yeah, make your weird movie, and like whatever it is, we'll have an audience for you, at least our Trauma fans. But they didn't give us any directives, any notes, or on anything. The trailer was the only time that Lloyd gave a note, and he's like, hey, you don't show a musical performance. If you're going to say that this is a musical, you should show a musical performance. And I was like, yeah, you're probably right.
For sure. Nice. Wow, that's amazing. I mean, Trauma has always struck me as like the punk rock movie production company. Like, it's just so wild and unfettered and disgusting and hilarious. Like, it as someone who grew up like in punk rock, it really resonates with me and like a few other people that I know. So that must have been amazing.
But doesn't Sweet Meats feel like punk rock light? Like, he still goes to church. He hasn't converted completely.
So I actually had a question about that. There's no nudity. And as a horror comedy, I was kind of like, I was waiting for some nudity. I'm not disappointed or anything, but it was one of the notes that I made. I'm just so used to watching Trauma and there being just gratuitous naked people.
I mean, Bobby, I'm pretty sure is in his BVDs at one point.
Oh, yeah, that's true. He had a big bulge. I noticed that.
Yeah. Oh, he had a big bulge. Thank you. Finally, somebody says.
Well, there was no stuffing involved there. I assure you.
Do we want to? You were like, Nick was behind the camera, and he's like, "Are you sure you don't want to put another sock in there?" And I'm like,
hilarious.
"Well, I can't see what it looked like."
No, it was good, man. It was okay. So did you guys grow? Also, I want to say, I think I'm going to start an Indiegogo now because we're a no budget podcast, and if there's a platform like that where I can put out, we do a lot of like visual edits. My editor went to film school, so we've been experimenting with like creating more of a visual medium rather than just this, which is mainly audio. Did you guys grow up religious? Because I noticed the reciting of Matthew 7:12 about doing unto others as you would have them do unto you. Was that like a special phrase or?
I love it. You were asking so many questions that nobody else has nice. Well, thank you. On.
No,
I That is 100% a compliment. So that was Mario Spida Gray, who was a contributor for the film. At his Indiegogo reward perk was he wanted to do something audio, and I said, great. We have a couple of different driving scenes. It's a movie that's filled by music. I can put you as, I know we have a scene with a radio. We can have you as the change in the dial.
Yes.
And it can be this small town, whatever the AM radio channel is, of this local church. And he's Hispanic. And I was like, okay, I'm going to make it this Hispanic Catholic proverb that he says, which was the Matthew, and it connected with eating. So I looked up on it, and I was just like, all right, I'm going to have him talk about something. So it was a much longer clip that we had to edit down based off of the pace of the scene and like how it was moving. But that came from a contribution of somebody that added to another layer of the movie, because that proverb of Matthew talks about the gluttony of people, of like, no matter like how much you have doesn't mean that you like keep on eating. Like once you're satiated, you should stop eating.
Right.
Which is a metaphor, for a bunch of shit. But no, I'm agnostic. I grew up going to a Baptist church and then a Catholic church. Nick, did you go to any church?
No, my mom would drag me like once a year to the Catholic, like on Easter weekend. Like that's about the extent of my religious experience.
Same with me, for sure. There were two movies that sort of came to mind by watching Sweetmeats. One was Motel Hell, and the other was a Poultrygeist. Did those play any inspiration into the crafting of the film?
Yeah, for me, Motel Hell was a movie that I was shown at a very young age, too young of an age.
Yeah.
That I, for a long time, only knew, like, the things that I remember about the movie was that he wore a giant pig's head over his head, with the chainsaw and the overalls.
Oh, okay.
The other thing that I remembered was the people with their heads buried and their throats had been slit.
Yes.
So like almost like their tongues had been pulled out. Like in Sweetmeats. Those were the two things that I knew for the longest time. Since watching it as a kid, I rewatched it and I was just like, oh, it's so interesting that this is a satire of the horror genre right at the beginning of the horror genre starting to ramp up in the 80s.
Oh, okay.
They already were making a commentary and a satire on a genre that hadn't reached its zenith yet. So like more like in 88, 87 is when you're going to like reach the apex of the genre with as many, Fangoria runs the article with Freddy, Leatherface, Jason, and one other, Michael Myers from Halloween 5.
Yeah.
And a thing. And that's almost actually kind of like the obituary and the funeral photo of the genre. Because then once 88 goes to 89, you see each other sequel in every genre take a step down. And then once you reach 1990, it is straight to video.
Okay.
Everybody who had the renaissance of like Coscarelli coming back with Phantasm 2 in 88. You have Tobe Hooper coming back with Texas Chainsaw 2. So those are two sequels that hadn't had a movie in over a decade. Texas Chainsaw, almost 15 years. Once those things come out, and those movies unto themselves, Phantasm 2 is like the Terminator 2 of horror movies, where Texas Chainsaw 2 lives in kind of a more similar Motel Hell parody area of the genre. So,
I've actually never
Motel
seen
Hell.
Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh, Texas Chainsaw Part 2?
Either of them. I guess I just never got around to it. I usually prefer like just straight like funny horror or whatever. But these are interesting ideas. I think I should actually check that out finally.
Yeah. No, you should definitely do. I mean, the first 4 Texas Chainsaws, I think, are...
There's 4?
Each very...
I had no idea.
There are... Good God, man. There are maybe 13 Texas Chainsaw Massacres.
Really?
Like proper ones. I'll send you a list. Yeah. But I
Okay,
mean, I was
awesome,
going to say just the first 4.
Wow. What? I had no idea. Yeah.
Nick, for you, like, what did you grow up watching where you were like, oh, this is how I think this should look?
Oh, well, on the horror front, we were a Michael Myers household. Like straight up Halloween. Like I watched those movies on repeat. I think we had a VHS copied with like 1, 2, and 3 on it. Like the 6 hours of like movies, so the quality is even lower than you would ever expect, and like probably wore out the tape on that. So just. When it comes down to it, we got with the restaurant, Nick's restaurant, we just got so lucky, I think, with just you walk into that place and it's like stepping back in time, but like in all the right ways. And we're like, we don't have to do anything. We're just like, let's just go. Let's just,
sure.
And this is the look that we wanted, like the kitchen with the counter, with the, the pass through window to the kitchen. Yeah, it was just fantastic. But I think on that front,
the way the bathrooms were set up too. Like for that one bathroom shot, like in that weird little hallway, like it's not good to have a hallway, like a galley's hallway, and like when you're filming.
Of course, yeah.
Because you, I mean, we use that hallway, 3 different times? When she's like collecting the money, when like the killer comes out, when we're in the bathroom, like the way that you shot that, like if I was like awkwardly laying with the plunger, you were just as awkwardly like pinned up, like, what framing can I get? What lens can I use?
I can see that.
Get like this shot. Yeah.
I have to say that first scene in the bathroom was the most scarring one to me. I was like, oh, this is this type of movie. Okay. But I assume that it's like metaphorical for his shitty life, right?
Yes, yes. So my mom read this. So my dad played Ponce de la Surge, the food critic.
No way, really? Okay.
My
mom
is in it in the background, or in a couple.
Is that
shots.
Anna Glore? Because I noticed.
So Anna Glore is my daughter, who is the wraparound. She was 4 or 3.5 at that time.
Oh wow.
She's the young girl at the beginning and end.
Oh, okay. Oh,
she's the little blonde girl.
Yeah, nice.
So she was so hyped to be in the movie. We got her the pig onesie.
Yeah.
Lizzie Shrebus, who was the head of the makeup, gave her old stuffed pig doll for the movie because again, no budget. Like we were gonna buy buy like stuffed animals. And the day of is just like, I don't want to film. And we were like. My wife and I were like, I'm so, what? She's like, I don't want to be in Daddy's movie. Like because we kind of wrote like, the framework of the movie kind of works because like, okay, how do we do this? So Hiance texts me, he's like, is there a snack she likes? And I was like, what do you mean? You're like, is there a snack that she likes to have that you like she doesn't have all the time? And I was just like, puffy Cheetos. He's like, tell her I will bring her a full like adult size bag of puffy Cheetos if she does the movie. Nice. And we did, and she was hilarious. Just like, okay, I guess. And then she was great. Like she's so cute, she was like great. So good.
That to me was like a sort of like a twisted Princess Bride influence. Like I was pretty confused. Like I watched the movie twice. I watched it all the way through, and I was like, "What's going on here?" And the way it like immediately switches to the restaurant, I thought that was really clever and pretty cool. We've got about 20. We've got about. I'm sorry to cut you off. We got about 20 minutes left here. Can we talk about the music of the movie and whether? So I know Ricky, you're a musician. Nick, do you also play music?
We saw the guitar in your closet with the amp. What's going on back there?
There was no guitar.
Don't look at that. There's nothing.
Don't worry about it.
I don't have an ultra persona that I do on Saturdays in Cincinnati.
Don't pay attention to the man behind the curtain. Do not.
Yeah. Sure. Okay.
No, for good or bad, all the music is on Ricky and his men of minstrels.
Of mayhem.
Well, each live scene with the music, I would like to compliment you on that, Nick. Shot exceptionally well. The color scheme, the way that I couldn't really recognize Jerry with the blonde hair, and then the way he's like is waving right before he goes. I just really like to get up. The musical scenes were definitely my favorite aspect. How long did it take you? I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to mention, I'll talk about, I'll let Ricky go and talk about the creation of the music here momentarily after I get finished gabbing. But no, so we shot a lot of the music video-esque parts at a brewery that we've worked with multiple times. So it was generally after a few hours we would be at the restaurant filming. And then we'd pack up and drive the half hour across town, and we'd go to the brewery. So it was always a little fun. It always felt like we were almost like letting our hair down. Everybody would get a pint of beer, then we'd get the band set up. So, it was a little more relaxed. It was at the end of the day kind of situation.
Nice.
The one night I do remember, so we went from the restaurant to the brewery. I think we filmed one of the music videos kind of things and set up. And then Ricky's like, oh yeah, we still got to go film another thing in my basement, and that's when he maybe used some stuffing. So it was like I thought I was finished, and I was like, yep, time to go home. And he's like, no, we have one more music video we got to film this evening. So that's when the stuffing came in.
Okay,
that was before the beard got trimmed. So that was the first time we shot Darkness, was when Bobby has the stage fright, and comedian John Holmes, it's his real name, he's not the dead porn star. He is the person who's running the open mic.
Yeah.
Was that the most amount of takes that we had? Because we were just having like so much fun of him. Like he was riffing like fake band names that like came up before Bobby or who were going to come after.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
He was phenomenal. So we filmed that. So the reason why we had to film the other thing in the basement was the next day I had to shave my beard live on camera. So it was just like, hey, I know you think you're done for the night, and we've been filming for 9 hours, but like we got to go to my basement, and you got to film me do a song without my underpants. Like, so come on board.
Sounds like a great time, honestly. What was I going to say? The music. How long did it take to write the soundtrack? It's like, 12, 15 songs, all completely original?
So, all completely original. David Kornfeld, who did the score and who arranged most of the songs.
Yeah.
Him and I worked together in Chicago when we did Storefront Black Box Musical Theater.
Okay.
So him and I had a shorthand. He was on board for Open House, which is the movie that didn't happen that featured the restaurant Sweetmeats. And so when we pivoted, I was like, well, David's got to be on board if we're going to do this. And he was.
Nice.
So a couple of the songs that we had done were songs that were in a different script we were thinking about doing called Roadkill, that we shot a proof of concept. And so like the song Catching You. So the killer in that movie, the premise of that was, what if Smokey and the Bandit was a horror movie? And the killer listened to this music that sounded like late 70s, early 80s country rock.
Oh, okay.
So I reappropriated about 3 songs from that.
Nice.
And with David, and then again, coincidentally, restaurant and Bobby Mackey's looking the way they do. Another boon or feather in her cap was Nick Vitus, the owner of Nick's Restaurant, played in a band. So the band that like is behind Bobby, those are guys that he sometimes plays with on the weekend.
Oh, okay.
Did not know the songs.
Yeah.
We did playback twice, and they started being able to play along with the songs.
Nice. Very cool.
So then Nick came on board. It was like, if you want, I can lay down some live tracks of like different lead guitar or bass or drums or whatever, because we play in this band. And if you want, we can do the final vocals in the banquet hall room where we used as like setup when we shot the movie. So we were able to redo all of our vocals, from the playbacks that we needed when we filmed the scenes, and had these luscious sounding songs, because then Dustin Matthew Taylor, who grew up with Timmy Barone, who plays Jerry, he does The Legend of Bob Sweets, Sweetest Meats, and Diddle My Fiddle. Those are all songs I wrote.
Yeah.
But then to like him, and I was like, so I think Diddle My Fiddle sounds like Walk This Way if it were done by Jerry Reed. It's just like, got it. And like bust out this sound that we're just like, oh man.
That's very cool.
We're so lucky. Yeah.
Was that you singing? Or who was singing? As Bobby?
When it's Bobby?
Yeah.
When it's Bobby singing, it's me singing.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it's not good. I mean,
it's so deep and rich. Like, I wasn't sure if it was actually you or not, honestly.
Live off that for a year.
No, I think it's really great music, honestly. I think The Grind was my favorite song.
Oh, yeah.
That's the one that I think, like, because it works obviously with the story of the movie of grinding up humans and just the grind of like this life. But we did try, after acquiring Dustin Matthew Taylor from Owensboro to do those few songs, we're like, well, maybe his voice is so good, maybe he should be the singing voice of Bobby Sweets. So we had him do a track to try to match, because we had already filmed it, which is hard because you already did a playback to a track that you're already kind of syncing, which was me. So if I redo the vocals, it's easier. When someone completely different is doing it, it matched fine, but we were like, of a singer. Like, I think people would be questioning in the movie, why isn't this guy famous if he sounded like that? So we ultimately, left it be my voice, which for good or for bad.
Do you still have the Jerry mascot? That's a Jerry mascot, right? It's very briefly. Yeah, the chef, yes.
Is Jerry's wearing the pig mask? No. That was a pair of brothers who, one of the brothers had an old car. So when we put out like the shout to like, hey, we're going to do this scene one day, that's the day we did all the extras in the restaurant. We had all the old cars, anybody who would bring out an old car. One of the brothers of, I think it's the maroon 70s car, with a really like nice spoiler that Nick films nicely when he goes across all those. The hardest part about that was not getting the new cars that were driving on the road behind all the old cars. The one brother he's just like, hey, I don't know if this helps. Like, I have an old, like, weird, like, jelly mascot guy with a mustache. He's like, I don't know if you can use it. And we're like, yes, please bring it.
Nice. Yeah.
And we were just like, what is it? We're like, is it Bobby? Is it Jerry? We're like, I don't know. It's a mustache dude wearing a chef's outfit. Like, it works.
I really thought it was Jerry.
Production value. Bring it in.
Yeah. That is cool. So cool. I got more question about, I guess this would be cinematography. The use of the red and blue lighting in the first meat grinder scene. Is that Hitchcock inspired? Didn't Hitchcock use like the blue to represent like an innocent person and the red to like represent a more menacing person?
No, I really wish I could say we ripped that off, but filming in we were filming in Bobby Mackey's basement. The old honky tonk that's no longer there. They tore it down. Once we were finished filming, they knocked the building down because it was useless after that. But no, we got lucky with the lighting, because I mean, if you want to light something properly, you want to turn off all the lights and then start turning them back on one by one or placing them in specific spots. So the basement just had a few hanging bulbs in a few places. So really, it gave us a ton of atmosphere without, yet again, just having the time to to really go in and properly light things and having the resources to do that. So no, we had a few like small little LED multicolored lights where you can change the color temp, you can change the brightness. So it was more just just getting some pops of color in there. No, Ricky set those up, I believe, prior to the shot. So he's probably gonna maybe, on the next interview, we will definitely 1000% be like, yeah, we were inspired by Hitchcock.
Yeah,
we
definitely.
Used the blue and the red.
Definitely.
Yeah. So I'm definitely going to use that next time. But if you go back to this one, in all honesty, you'll know that I'm just ripping you off. So
Well, we don't get many viewers, so
Well, no, I mean,
no one will ever know.
maybe I'm wrong. I did text you, right? I had just watched. This has nothing to do with lighting, but I will take the Hitchcock. I had just watched Dial M for Murder, and when the wife is getting arraigned through the police and the court in the trial, they don't cut to her getting arrested in front of the police, doing the thumb, being questioned. They don't cut to the trial. They have her in front of one wall, and he kind of keeps on tilting it and shining a bright light, and he goes through all of that. He goes through the whole process, but in a very theatrical, low budget, no budget way. And I remember, and I texted you that night, and I don't remember where we were in the process of Sweetmeats, but I was just like, you have to remember that we can do shit like this. Like, this can be a choice when we don't have. We make a joke that All Your Friends Are Dead has a police interrogation room, and we used an actual interrogation room, and it looks like somebody's closet because there's like an exposed like light socket or whatever. Like, what I think sometimes is forgotten is you can mix like theatricalities or the ways that you do things. Like, it doesn't have to be like a giant fight with robots or whatever. Like, what are you trying to tell? You can make a choice as long as it sounds good. Because, like, bad sound is just bad sound.
Sure. One last question here, I guess. Was Clerks at all an inspiration? Or is Kevin Smith in general?
Oh, yeah, I mean, we gotta give it up to Kevin Smith, like Robert Rodriguez.
For sure.
A lot of those 90 independent filmmakers, and especially, it really, truly, I mean, not only their films like inspired us, but like the DVD boom of the late 90s and early 2000s is probably what made us into filmmakers, or at least want to go down this path, I should say, now that we've made a couple films. Just listening to the commentaries, having access to all those behind the scenes features. I mean, I remember like you'd buy the movie and then like 4 months later they'd come out with a special edition or whatever. So the studios are double dipping, but we were, oh my goodness, it was so awesome. Now we have 3 discs and I have all these behind the scene interviews and features and all this stuff. Robert Rodriguez, like on some of his, like it was like the precursor to the Sony Vegas editing software, like in the, on there you can get a free download. And so that was like where we started with sketch comedy, filming things with like a little camcorder, and we used that free software to like start learning how to just basically do basic cuts and put stuff together. So yeah, we love Kevin Smith. I probably don't go a day without referencing Jay and Silent Bob in some manner. For sure. Like 50 years later, right? But yeah, 100%. Even if we didn't like inspire to like put this in, it's just ingrained in us, and that's how we're supposed to do things from watching their films 1,000 times.
Cool, I love that.
We made plenty of Clerks 2 jokes of like working in a restaurant, like that being movies. Like, it was off. Like, again, we have this shorthand where if you make a reference to something or you say a line from something like Tommy Boy, Black Sheep, Wayne's World, Clerks 2, anything Kevin Smith, we don't even say it with the inflection to be a good impression anymore. We just say it monotone, where it's just like, oh, what's the fuck is the internet? Like, we just say it, like, we don't do it like, what's the fuck is the internet? Sure. What's a VPN? Like, we just say it like monotone, like this Pavlovian thing, and we're like, yep, I know what you're talking about. Like, I get what you're putting down. So 2 weeks ago, Kevin Smith hosted, to show how devotees we kind of still are in some way, or we're saying thank you and we're still interested, is he did a 37-hour film challenge that 4 of us, Nick included, filmed a thing. We hadn't worked together in 20 years since we did our first zombie horror movie.
Oh, wow.
We entered the festival and we became finalists, and we find out if our short for Kevin Smith won the night that we premiere in Cincinnati with Sweetmeats.
Oh, that is so cool.
It'll be,
wow.
it'll be an interesting night of just being like, oh, it'd be awesome if we won. Oh, we didn't win. Well, that premiere went well, so I probably
well,
let's not let any rain on the parade.
For sure. The premiere looks like a lot of fun. I know there's like several different events taking place. Would you like to plug the premiere so everybody knows when Sweetmeats is coming out?
March 22nd at the Esquire Theater in Cincinnati. You can get a ticket for Hands Across Tramerica, which is a festival of 6 recent trauma films, or if you want to get the slightly cheaper ticket for just Sweetmeats, at 6:30 is the world premiere. You can get, I think, a $20 ticket. It'll be Lloyd Kaufman will be there, a lot of the cast and crew. Nick said he's going to try to make it, but we don't know.
Oh, you gotta make it, man. Also, I just got the plugging motion that you did. That took me a second to to understand. Well, I mean, I could have so many questions for you guys. Do you know Zach Amico?
Working all my life, breaking bones and bruising ribs just to get right where I am and barely stand. Long days and nights, telling lies, cheating, fib, blood, sweat, and tears, and all the fears of a working man. But it gets hard to keep on moving on. I tell myself this simple phrase inside a song. The grind is hard, the grind is rough, and I'm never ever giving up. Pay my dues, do my time, I hold my head up high and high. The grind is hard, the grind is rough, and I'll never say I've had enough. When I meet my maker on the fateful day, he'll look at me and he will say, boy, you did just fine on the grind.
15V, take 2. Action.
I told you it was a hell of a grinder.
Cut.
Tastes good. That was working all my life,